Oh my gosh, it's another episode of True Scary Stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today's wine of the night is brought to you by Murphy Good. We're drinking the Cabernet Sauvignon. It's family owned and minted in the USA.
Yeah.
It says vinted. I've never heard of it.
I'm older than this company.
Oh. Is that what you want? That's not really what you want when it comes to wine.
It's okay. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
We're sitting here in the dark and we have a candle, and then there's like all these really scary like creaks in the blinds where if like somebody was outside you could just see their silhouette.
Yeah.
Looking in, peering in spookily.
That's how we do it.
Do not forget to join the Facebook group at True Scary Stories with Edie. And then also go rate us on iTunes if you're going to give us 5 stars. We really appreciate it. We'll read your review. Are you ready to get scared?
Yes, we're going to start with a fan story.
Oh, is this fan story from Josiah Miller?
Yes.
Wow, I have such a great memory. All right, Josiah, well, here's your story.
And he calls this story Elizabeth. Hey, Edie, Nick, and Uglies. I heard this great podcast and thought I should share my story. When I was around 10 years old, I went with my older sister to watch one of our friends' grandma with amnesia while they were out of town for a few days, meaning we had to spend the night. The first night, we were shutting off the lights, and out of the corner of my eye, it looked like a person was sitting a few feet away from me on a bench near the front door. This person looked like a young girl, but I was still able to tell it wasn't my older sister. I didn't tell anyone for fear of being made fun of. I didn't sleep much that night. A couple of weeks later, I was alone in our garage with my older brother, who was around 15 at the time. He has serious autism. He can't speak or even use the restroom by himself. I'm sitting in the car, and I look over the left side where my brother is, and I see something standing beside our car. Oddly, I wasn't able to tell what it was before diving to the floor. My brother saw it too and gasped and covered his eyes. I've never seen him do anything that normal or seen him be afraid. I was a huge baby as a kid. When my sisters came to get me, I cried and told them everything. I said I kept seeing something in the corners of the garage and behind the car, but it would disappear when I tried to get a clearer look at it. We went to a priest, and I was blessed with holy water. It went away. A year later, it was back. I suffer from migraines every day and have to get up in the night for Advil downstairs. Often I would see a young girl near my parents' bedroom. She spoke to me, but there were kind of telekinesis. I knew she wasn't talking, but she was speaking. There were times when I saw her that I wasn't afraid, and sometimes I would shake and have panic attacks from fear. She referred to me as Alpha and told me she was Elizabeth. She said she died there many years ago. Growing up Catholic, however, I knew she wasn't a ghost. I knew she was a demon. My parents and the priest both told me to never say her name in reference to her because that could make it stronger and make it appear. Not sure if that's a superstition, but you bet your booty we never did. During the day, I would see my sister laying in bed just to come back moments later and find out she was downstairs and her bed had been made for a while. My mom told me not to tell anyone else, even if they were family. She feared scaring them and becoming outcasts. One day, my younger sister and my mom got in a bad fight. I have 4 sisters and 1 brother, by the way. After the fight, my younger sister stormed upstairs and locked her door. After a few minutes, we hear the worst scream I have ever heard in my life. I ran upstairs and her door's locked. She's still screaming and crying. I start to try to kick the door down, but she unlocks it. My mom and I run in to see her bawling on the bed. She was 10, as were the twins. And she tells us that she was cleaning her room when a painting fell off the wall. When she went to grab it, she felt a hand come from under the bed and grab her ankle. I asked her if it was a person, fearing someone broke in. She said it felt like a young child hand, around 13, guessing from the size and the fingernails. Keep in mind, I never told her anything about my experiences. Soon after, I was with my parents and my brother came over and called my name. He pulled me to his room. Although he has done this to my parents, he's never done this to me. We went to my room and he starts pointing to the closet and won't let me leave. but with his very small vocab, he can't tell us what's there. He said it was a duck and a crab. One night we were downstairs, me, my mom, my sisters. The weather's fine and it's night, then the lights go out. My mom lights a candle and a few minutes later the candle blows out and the garage door opens. We all ran upstairs like wimps. My younger twin sister told me that day that she had been seeing a small girl with a pink nightgown and black hair dropping over her face near my parents' bedroom door at night. I had never told her, and this matched the description perfectly. We saw a priest and nothing they did worked, but they all admitted to feeling something odd, and when hearing our story they always told us she wasn't a ghost and not to fall for it. She was a demon taking form of my top fear, which at the time happened to be creepy girls after seeing the ring and reflections. The last night I went to the park and started to talk to my mom about this again, who was one of the only 4 out of 8 family members who believed me. She asked me if I believed in God, and I said I guess. Upon saying this, I looked in the side mirrors, and my reflection winked at me. I broke down.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's pretty freaky, huh?
That's really freaky.
I broke down. I was 12 by now, and just started sobbing. I refused to look in mirrors for weeks. We were given Benedictine crucifixes, and nothing ever happened if we wore them. You can imagine how terrifying it was to lose that crucifix and know night was coming. After that, we moved shortly, and it all ended. Sorry to the people we sold the house to. I never talked to them, so I don't know if they experienced anything. My mom, my younger sister, and one of my older sisters were the only people who believed me about this. And I know this story sounds cliche, but I promise it's all true. My dad and other sisters joked about it and teased me, and that really hurt. Really, really bad. But now, I'm one of the bravest people I know, and I have all these experiences to credit that to. I call this story Elizabeth when I tell friends. Gets them more creeped, so I'm not alone when I share it in my fear. Also, this happened a long time ago, and I've barely told anyone, so I've forgotten a bit. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Oh my God, that was really freaky.
Yeah.
And now you made it stronger by telling us its name, and now we're talking about it.
Oh, man, come on.
Slendy Man.
Slender Man. That's our nickname for Slender Man.
That's what happens when you Slender Man us. Now since we're talking about it, it's going to come to fruition.
Damn it, Josiah Miller.
It's Josiah.
Well,
thank you for your story. It was really freaky. I don't like the winking part. It was too much. You bet your booty that was freaky.
You bet your booty it was scary.
You bet your booty.
That's right.
Well, you bet your booty. We got more stories coming up for you about demons.
This is about specific ones.
Oh, okay. Well, Nick, we better hurry up and get to the next story.
Well, let's do it.
Okay, and we are ready for our episode about Skinwalkers, which I don't know what that is. Do you, Nick?
It's a Navajo demon type thing.
Apparently, there's a warning that if you are...
Yes, if you are a practicing Navajo, you may not want to hear these stories because...
You know why.
You know why.
Yeah, we don't have to explain it. You should know.
All right.
All right, the first one is called The Delivery.
My father owns a small delivery service that operates out of Farmington, New Mexico. We mostly deliver small packages out to the middle of nowhere that are too much of a hassle for the larger delivery companies to bother with. My dad is the only employee, and we have a few pickup trucks and a trailer. One day we get a delivery out to Window Rock, Arizona, on the Navajo reservation about 2 hours from Farmington. My dad gets the call for the job while he is chilling with his Navajo friend Travis and his girlfriend. Travis mentions how he's got a family in Window Rock that he hasn't seen in ages and suggests that they go with him. I was about 6 or 7 at the time, and it was the summertime, so Dad decides we'll go down together. He can do the delivery really quick, then while Travis sees his family, we can go check out the Window Rock. Big rock face with a large hole in it that goes to the other side. Pretty cool. We had to convoy in separate trucks since my dad's was loaded down with the freight. We decided to bring along some walkie-talkies so that we could communicate with one another. We spend our time in Window Rock, everything is generally uneventful, and we start heading home along the highway with my dad and I in front and Travis and his girlfriend in the truck behind us. I honestly don't remember most of the Window Rock trip, but this next part I can never forget. We were somewhere on the highway between Window Rock and Gallup, New Mexico. It had just rained earlier in the day and the road was kind of slick, so we're taking it pretty slow. On the left of the highway there is nothing but sandstone cliffs, and on the right there's a huge field separated from the road by a small barbed wire fence. We crest the top of this hill, and down at the bottom of the hill we see what appears to be a very large dog, sitting back on its haunches in the middle of the road, facing the cliffs. My dad calls over the radio, "Hey Trav, do you see that big ass dog?" Travis starts yelling back over the radio, "That is not a dog. Speed up right now and hit it." He sounds almost hysterical. He just keeps screaming, "Hit it! You have to hit it! Please, please, hit that fucking thing right now." So my dad starts to speed up, and as we get a bit closer, I can begin to see it a little more clearly. It's covered in this brown, wiry, matted hair that appears to have dried blood all over it. It's still facing the cliffs, but the moment our headlights hit it, it turns and looks at us, and it has a face. I don't know how else to describe it other than a mix between a bear's and a human's face. It looks twisted and distorted and almost in pain. As we get closer to this thing, we start to realize it's actually fucking huge. Though it was still sitting on its haunches, it is about shoulder height with the hood of the truck. We get literally inches from hitting it when it lets out this scream that sounds like someone screaming as their lungs were filling with water, and it leaps backward towards the field, landing just on our side of the barbed wire fence. Then with another leap, it was gone from sight. Travis comes over the radio again. "Holy shit, keep driving, we have to get out of here, we have to go faster." He kept repeating that last part. "We have to get out of here and we have to go faster." Pretty soon we were speeding like crazy, and just as soon as we start to come near the outskirts of Gallup, we get pulled over. Travis pulls his truck over with us. Naturally, this makes the cop, a Navajo man himself, very on edge, and he immediately asks why Travis felt the need to pull over as well. Travis says, "We just saw a skinwalker a few miles back and has been following us." The officer immediately turns white, stammers something about a verbal warning, gets in his car, and takes off. We do the same. We didn't see anything else that night, but when we got home, Travis refused to let us leave without taking some kind of Navajo totem thing that was supposed to keep it away.
Freaky! Even the cop was shook.
Yeah.
He was like, I hate when they say that, because then I have to leave.
Give him a verbal warning.
That's all I get when they tell me that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so Skinwalker is a doggish bear human.
It's a large, doggish werewolf bear type creature.
Okay, good. I'm freaked out. I want to hear more. The next story is called Don't Get Off the Bus.
Anybody that has been on the Navajo reservation has either probably heard of some creepy things or have experienced pretty creepy things, namely skinwalkers. I've only seen one. Here's my story. I come from a small town in northern Arizona that's sandwiched between the Paiute Reservation to the north and the U.S.'s largest Navajo reservation to the south. My high school, being so small, a 1A high school that has on average 80 students enrolled every year, always had to travel south about 5 to 10 hours one way to play another high school in any sport. This means that we traveled a lot on the Navajo res. And also, we usually stayed at hotels where we would head out to play and come home in the morning. But this trip was a little bit different. I remember the basketball coach saying that the school didn't have enough money to put up the teams in a hotel that trip, so we were going to be on the road for a total of about 12 hours. I was the only male senior to play basketball that season. We had just got done playing our game and headed home on our bus, Big Blue. We were headed out, and it wasn't long, about 2 hours of driving, before we had entered the res. By this time, everyone's asleep, with it being about 2 in the morning. When we had crossed the res's border, I noticed the bus driver had sped up and was now going about 85 miles an hour. I thought this was a little weird because he never exceeded the speed limit, at least not in my high school career. For some reason, I couldn't fall asleep like the rest of my teammates, so I just sat back in the back of the bus staring out across the desolate desert landscape that was lit up by a full moon. As I looked out, I could see a figure running towards the bus at an angle of pursuit and keeping up with the bus at 85 miles an hour. As the figure got closer, I saw there was a humanoid form, As a matter of fact, it looked exactly like a human, only that the face was painted half black and half white with glowing eyes. Glowing eyes like a rabbit's eyes, reflecting light from the spotlight. I immediately thought, holy crap, it's a skinwalker. The skinwalker ran up to the edge of the road and just kept up pace with the bus, hurdling sagebush and rocks while staring at me. After I made eye contact with the thing, I could not look away. It was as if something was holding my head and my eyes in place. The skinwalker just smiled at me, this inhumane smile that went ear to ear, showing crooked yellow pointed teeth. I felt like I was going to throw up and I was panicking through the whole ordeal. The skinwalker started to crumple down on all fours, still keeping up with the bus. I could see his bones crack and reform, hair starting to appear all over the skinwalker's body. In about 3 seconds was now a coyote, and it ran off back into the desert out of view. As soon as it was gone, I ran to the onboard bathroom and puked a mixture of food and blood. I didn't want to tell anyone for fear they would think I was crazy. I confided in my Navajo friend. She told me that I needed to see the chief, who also happened to be a friend of mine, and get a blessing. I saw him the next school day in the parking lot. He just came up to me and mumbled something in Navajo while waving a feathered scepter-like thing, turned around, got in his truck, and drove away. To this day, I haven't seen another skinwalker. It might be due to the fact that I moved around from this town and that res, and if I do go south, I go around, way around.
Okay, or your problems were solved with the guy getting out of the truck and doing the little speech and waving the wand. Like, that's what he came for, you know? It's not like he came and was just, like, not thinking it was going to work. He thought it was going to work. That's why he came.
That's why he left immediately. He's like, it worked.
Yeah, it worked. No, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I get rid of this shit. This is what I do. That's why it seems like I just don't care, because I do this. I know what's up. Gone, just like that. This skinwalker looked different than the other one. The other one was like more like a dog bear. Yeah. This one was a human with a painted face.
Yeah.
So it could take the form of many things.
Yes, they're shapeshifters.
Oh no. Let's learn some more. And this next story is called Tap Tap at the Window. Oh my gosh, all stories with Tap Tap are so scary. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this. Yeah. I just got over the last Tap Tap.
Well, get ready for Tap Tap number 2.
Tap Tap.
At the window.
Tap? All right, go ahead.
After reading this tale, you probably won't sleep well tonight.
Oh!
Reddit user Navajo Joe's horrifying encounter with a skinwalker sounds like something right out of a horror movie. After collecting firewood, Joe, who was a child at the time, and his uncle got back into their pickup truck to head home. Joe felt something staring at him from outside his passenger window. He was about to look out behind him. His uncle shouted to him, "Don't!" Instantly, there was a tapping on the window behind him. While the two continued their frightful journey home, the pickup truck suddenly dipped down in the back, as if something heavy had climbed into the truck's bed. All the while, the uncle kept repeating Navajo prayers and commanding Joe not to look behind him. Suddenly, the creature that climbed into the truck bed started tapping at the rear window. The tapping went on for a while until they finally felt the creature jump out. A few years later, Joe confronted his uncle about the events that transpired that night. The uncle confessed to him, "I didn't see faces, just eyes. It watched you." Uncomfortable with his uncle's answers, Joe jokingly asked his uncle why he didn't just brake check the creature while it was in the truck bed. To this, the uncle eerily replied, "Because it wasn't alone." Oh man, that freaked me out.
No, I don't like that Night Shyamalan twist at the end. I told you, and those blinds are creepy.
Oh, no, that was Rigby. Well, then let's turn on the light.
No, I like it. Okay. You scared me. That was just Rigby.
That was just Rigby, who is a dog-like creature.
You got scared. Okay. We really did get scared. You heard it live. Oh, no, wait, not live. Opposite of live. Recorded. All right.
We're still alive.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Are you ready for the next one? Or are you too scared? I'm not going to turn the lights on. It's so stupid.
Okay, all right.
Nick and I have gotten ourselves successfully scared.
Yes.
Are you ready for more, Nick? Can you handle it?
Yes.
The next story is called A Dog Silhouette.
Navajo Skinwalker story. Please be advised, if you're traditional, you may not want to read this story.
We already know.
My Skinwalker story. I'm half Navajo and half Mexican. For over 20 years of my life, I lived on the Navajo Nation Reservation in New Mexico. My Native American side of my family always warned us to be careful at night. My grandparents would always tell me stories of these shape-shifting witches who can curse you, kill you, or mess with you. They called them Skinwalkers, because they would take the skin of the dead animals and wear them to change into the animal or something in between a human and an animal, not a werewolf. I never believed in it really. I'm only half Navajo and light-skinned, so I was never treated the same by most people here, so I drifted away from the culture and thought it wasn't for me. So it was around summer. This happens when I was in high school, about 6 to possibly 8 years ago. I would have been like 15, 17. I used to hang out with a group of guys who like to do a lot of delinquent type stuff. You know, smoke cigs, stay up all night, all the guys playing video games at somebody's house. Then at 3 a.m., if we felt like it, we would go sneak out to Paradise. I know it's ironic, the name. It's basically a giant metal pipe that carries irrigation water to all the farms. But really, it's also a spot for kids to drink or get high in the evenings. However, the place did have a scary history of kids and adults who drowned or died in the night, but I always thought those were urban legends. At 3 a.m., that was our time, as we boys would test one another to cross the pipe. Sort of an initiation, see how far you could go. We usually could go all the way across. Now keep in mind, that pipe goes well over 3 stories high. It's also wide. I'd say as wide as an average car. We walked this thing for kicks in a group of 9 at 3 a.m. So one night, me and a small group of friends were driving around bored at 2 a.m. wanting to spook each other. And I said, let's go to Paradise, walk the pipe, as most of these friends I was hanging out with had never done like I had. They agreed, pumped up on energy drinks, and we drove. It was pretty quiet. The sky was dark, the night was cold. The boys with me were Michael, Cordy, Tommy, and Tharal. Now, Tharal was a driver because he had the car, and his family was pretty well off too, so he never had to worry about cash. We got to the place, and he didn't want to go. He said his parents were traditional and he wanted to just chill in the car. Basically, he wanted to text some chick, I'm sure, without us bugging him. I told him it's fine, keep the car locked and running in case we see something scary. Me and the other boys went on without him. As we got to the pipe, a few of the guys were scared and had me take the lead. As we crawl, I'd say a quart away on the pipe, talking and laughing, I noticed a faint white or light gray bat, bigger than my head, flying around us. It dived for us a few times. We dodged it, but then Tommy slipped because of his Converse he was wearing and almost fell out the pipe. I reached out to him, grabbing his right arm. Michael had grabbed my shirt collar and Cordy had grabbed him. All together we got back on the pipe shaken, that we almost lost Tommy into the dark depths below. The bat was gone. We were all freaking out, but the guys wanted to continue. We laughed about it as guys usually do. Past the halfway point on the pipe, there was no problems. But when we got 3/4 of the way, Michael saw something. You see, at the end of the pipe, there is a hill. Behind that hill is a very brightly lit church, somewhere off in the distance. Anyway, on that hill there was a black figure of pointy ears, a dog silhouette. Now, Michael was a tough guy. He yelled at the thing, saying, I'm not scared of you, you fucking skinwalker, and tossed a few rocks he had in his pocket. One rock hit the pipe and the other fell into the brush below. The shadow of the dog stood up on its 2 legs like a person. We all freaked out. Jaws dropped. Then Cordy said, look, another one to the left. Tommy said there's another on the right. So 3 silhouettes of pointy dog-eared people on the hill. I told them to back up so we can get to the car. The things to the right and the left of the hill started to move down the hill towards us. Now there's just one standing guard on that hill, the one who first stood up. We're trying to go back, but we're still 3/4 of the way under us, complete darkness. It was quiet for a few minutes. Then we heard a girl crying. Sounded like she was hurt and scared, almost in pain. We were overcome with a strange feeling of wanting to help. Michael wanted to go back towards the end and crawl down and help this girl. I almost followed too, but inside I was like, no, this is wrong. Something isn't right. So I yelled at him and everyone, saying, "You're stupid. Look at that thing up there on the hill. Did you not see those things? It's a trap. Screw that fake crying. If the girl is hurt, we'll come back when the sun's up in 2 hours and check." Now, the moment I said that, the crying stopped. All the guys freaked out, saying they couldn't believe what came over them. They said they almost forgot what we saw before. Halfway on the pipe now, we hear a native drum behind us playing like a powwow. We start running. Running on this pipe, a third almost of the car, Corey stops us. We can all hear it under our feet, and it sounds like a pack of snarling, growling, yelping coyotes. But it's pitch dark below, and we know they are under us. We run full speed, not looking back to the car, and yell drive and haul ass off that dirt road back onto the well-lit gas station. We explained what happened in Thrall. We couldn't get the girls crying out of our head, and we went back in daylight just to make sure. We did not find a girl. Instead, in the area we heard the crying, we saw a coyote watching us at close distance away. It was not shy. It just looked at us for 4 seconds and walked into the brush. I did not go back there after that.
Oh, what? Well, yeah, your friend almost died, and you guys are just laughing about it. Yeah, we almost lost Jim.
You fucking dummy.
And Corgi, or whatever that guy...
Cordy, get out of here, Corey.
Corey or Cordy?
I think there was a lot of misspellings. So I think he wrote Cordy, but it's Corey.
Oh. Yeah, because Cordy is a whole different dude than Corey.
Yeah.
Corey almost died, and then like, that was crazy. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, Cordy would be like, let's not do this, guys.
I don't think.
I think I'm just gonna stay here with.
I should have stayed home today.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We got one more story for you guys. And this next and last story is coming to you right after this message of joining our Facebook group at True Scary Stories and rating us on iTunes and giving us 5 stars. Following us on Instagram. I'm at Edie Gibson Comedy. Nick's at Nick Comic. Check out his podcast, Oh the Insanity. CLE. You ready for the last story?
All right, we'll do one more.
The last story is called My Father's Story.
My father told me a story once. I'll never forget it for a few reasons. I think it's the first story he ever told me as a child. It's also the story of how my grandfather died. But honestly, that isn't the reason. I never believed the story, even though my father swore up and down it was true. It wasn't until I started clicking around the internet and I started to believe. I started to hear other stories just like the one my father told me. It didn't take me long to believe in the rake. Here's the story the way he told it to me. We're out hunting one night. Coyotes, we kill them for $50 a skin. They lived on a dairy farm in Ohio. They'd kill calves sometimes. We do it every night because we needed the money. Sometimes while we were out, we'd come onto a deer and kill it. Our landlord didn't mind, and it could feed our family for a few nights and save us some money. Anyway, we were done making our rounds and heading home, walking because we didn't have a car or some four-wheeler back then. We'd cut through the woods. That's when we came upon it. Blood everywhere, splattered on the trees, in the grass, in the creek, everywhere. At first we figured it was a pack of coyotes. We'd seen it sometimes. They can't scavenge and start hunting deer or cattle. The worst was when they bred with feral dogs. But this wasn't like that. See, when a pack of dogs or wolves or coyotes attack something, they do it right. They'll pick off one that's weak or sick or old or just small. They'll hunt it, draw it into a corner, someplace it can't get out of, and they'll run it right to the biggest one, the alpha. And that deer will never see the alpha. It might hear it, but it won't see it. It'll just notice that its throat is gone and that it'll drop dead. It's quick, it's clean. That wasn't what happened here. Something had run up on a den of deer. Coyotes won't attack a den, wolves neither, because they get too much of a fight. There were three bodies just torn apart. You'd see a head here, a leg there, a torso there. Predators don't do that. They don't leave behind scraps. What had done this hadn't done it for food. It had done it for fun. But we didn't know that. We saw a bunch of carcasses and we think it's something we got to take care of. I remember my dad telling me to go home. He thought it was a pack of feral dogs. But I wasn't leaving him, and I damn sure wasn't walking through 2 miles of woods alone with nothing but a .22 and a pocket knife. I was only 13 at this time, so a .22 rifle was about the only gun I could reliably use. Dad had the shotgun, and I wasn't going anywhere without it. It took me a while to convince him, but finally we began tracking whatever did that. It wasn't hard either, we just followed the blood. Either that thing bled a deer before it got away or dragged one for a mile, I don't know. I know that I'd never seen my dad scared before that night. We started hearing noises. I've been in a lot of woods in my life. I've been all over the world and ain't heard noises like I heard that night. I heard things screaming. I've heard deer and fox and rabbits and raccoons and birds just scared. Keep in mind, this might be 12 or 1 o'clock. Except the fox and some birds, nothing was supposed to be even awake. But they weren't just awake, they were moving. I saw flocks of birds that night fly straight into trees just to get out of there. We came upon a pack of coyotes, nearly shot a couple thinking it was what we were looking for, and then we saw they were running towards us. They ran right past us and didn't even notice. Then some deer did the same, and some rabbits, squirrels, foxes, and even a couple of wild hogs. These things were supposed to be eating each other, and the only thing they cared about was getting out of there. We should have put it together, that maybe whatever we were tracking, it wasn't something we were supposed to see, and it wasn't something we could kill. I don't know why we didn't just go home. I guess we were curious. I think that was my dad's nature, to go toward trouble, to fight. And knowing what I knew about my father during the war, my nature was to stay close to him. We finally get into open valley. It was normally a soy field, but it wasn't in season, so it was just flat dirt. We saw the tracks then. A lot of the animals fleeing the forest had paved over the land, but where that deer blood was, nothing had taken a single step, like they were leaving it for us to find. The tracks were shallow. Whatever it was couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but that didn't mean much. A bobcat weighing 40 pounds wet nearly tore out my damn throat once. All that means is that it's quick and hard to hit. So we follow the tracks, and it doesn't take us long to find where it is. There's this old school house that sits on top of a hill. Half of it had been ripped out by a tornado, but nobody lived there, not for a long time. We caught homeless people in there sometimes, or druggies looking for a safe place to shoot up. We figured maybe that was it. Maybe it was just a sick kid riding around high, but we didn't think that for long. When we get within 50 yards, we hear this noise, a screeching kind of sound. It was sort of made up of two different sounds. One was a high-pitched screech, another was a low-pitched growl. It was making both at the same time. We get within 30 yards and we hear this sound. I can remember thinking that it sounded like paper being torn apart while someone was swinging water in a bucket back and forth. Dad looks at me, kneels down, and whispers, "I gotta stay behind him, because we're about to corner him. Any animal will fight when it's cornered, especially when it's a predator. But we can tell by the tracks that it's not just one. He tells me it's probably a single feral dog, probably rabid. The plan is to sneak up on it while it's eating, shoot it, and then keep shooting it till it doesn't move anymore, and slit its throat. If it gets to my dad, it's my job to shoot it or stab it to get it off of him. So he walks up, and I'm right behind him, just a tad to his side, so I can see what it is. I wish to this day I hadn't. It was leaning over a carcass, tears off its flesh, and throws what it doesn't nibble at aside. There's blood all over the brick, glistening in the moonlight. It's pale, white, human-looking, but not quite human. It had arms and legs like a human, but it sat like a monkey hunched over. Its hands weren't normal. It had long fingers with claws at the end. So we see that, and my dad hesitates. He wasn't about to fire on a person, so he clears his throat to try to get it to turn around. I swear to God, all the noise just ceased. I had never heard true silence before that, and not after it either. But for 2 seconds, nothing made any noise, which made it all the louder when it turned around and made this shrill cry and jumped on my dad. He got a shot off. I think he missed. If he hit this thing, it didn't mind, but it was on him. Tears parts of him apart. I started shooting at it with a .22 point blank, but it barely bled the thing. I got off 5 rounds, and then I started hitting it with a gun butt, but it wasn't budging. It didn't even register that I was there. It clawed at my dad, taking off bits of his flesh. It started on his torso, ripping off the skin, his chest, and then it moved up. It tore off his throat, it tore off his nose, his eyes, it scalped, and then it started digging in and ripped out the bottom half of his jaw, the little bones that tube into your neck, and then his ribs. I don't exactly remember what happened, but somehow my dad's knife ends up in this thing's shoulder and my dad ends up on my back. I'm running, and by God, I'm running faster than I'd ever run before or after. It follows me. I end up back in the woods opposite the ones we'd been in. I'm heading towards my landlord's house because it's half a mile away. I can hear this thing screeching and moaning. I hear the tree branches crack and get thrown around. It sounds like someone's taking an axe to every single tree I pass. It's cracking so loud and often, but I just ain't looking back. Finally, I trip into gravel. I look up and there's my landlord and a bunch of his buddies drinking around a campfire. I scream and I cry and they come over. I'm telling them to call an ambulance and he looks at me and I'll never forget what he said. "What is that on your back?" he asked me. Just as he said it, he saw one of those god-awful flannel shirts my dad wore everywhere. It was what was left of my dad. Most of his head, his torso, and nothing after the waist. Suddenly we hear it screeching. He grabs me and my dad gets thrown on the ground. I'm fighting him, crying because I think we could still save him, but somehow my dad had been gone before I ever picked him up. He has to pick me up and throw me inside before I come with him. The landlord and his buddies were all inside and they're locking doors and getting guns. The landlord's asking me what happened, but I just don't know what to tell him. He pieced enough of it together to understand that there was something dangerous out there. All the lights in the house are on and someone calls the cops. They'll be there, but in 15 minutes. We look outside and see it walk in front of the fire they made. Don't know what it is. One of them says it looks like an ape. Suddenly, something goes through the window. We shoot at it, but it ain't the thing. It's my landlord's dog. Just the body, though, not his head or legs. We start pushing things in front of the doors and windows, and we hear something in the garage. I remember one of his friends saying that the doors were open. We hear metal and glass just get ripped apart. We put on a couch and a TV in front of the door to the garage. It banged around some more, but then it got quiet. Not silent like it was before. We could hear it move around some, and the guys were talking, making sure the guns were ready. Someone hands me a pistol. No sooner did I cock the hammer back than we hear something shatter upstairs. Then we heard it screech again, except now it was louder. And it didn't echo and fade out because it was inside. We all rushed to the one door leading upstairs and we got to it just as that thing did. It opened just a bit and about 4 or 5 men just slammed into it. It's got its hand through. Someone with a shotgun took care of that, put the barrel right up to the wrist and pulled the trigger, cut its hand clean off. That only pissed it off though. It started pushing on the door, clawing. We were on one side pushing as best as we could, and it was on the other doing the same. That wood just wasn't going to hold on. So someone tells us to keep our heads down. Suddenly, the top half of the door is just gone. My ears are ringing, and there are splinters everywhere. 2 or 3 of them just unloaded on the top of that door. I don't really know where it went after that. The police got there. I was still glued to that door, or what was left of it. The sun was up before they got me off of it. They put me in a hospital for a while. A lot of people talked to me, but I didn't talk back, not for a long time. When I got back home, I got a job for my landlord working on the farm. We didn't talk much, not about the thing. But I signed up for the army when I was 19 and he sat me down to drink some scotch as a send-off. I asked him right away what the police had told him. The story they went with was a wild animal, probably a wolf, maybe a bear that had migrated north. I asked him how they could say that when they had the hand. He looks at me stunned. He tells me that hand never made it back to the station. The cop who had it in his car wrecked, drove into a tree and died on impact. The hand was never found, probably taken away by an animal. The cops, when they would acknowledge the hand existed at all, said it was simply the paw of a bear that looked like a human hand. I never talked to the landlord again. He went missing when I was in basic. The cops never found him. They said he owed some people some money and just ran away, but I don't think it's that simple. I never went back into those woods. But that was a lie. When my mother died, I don't think my father felt he had anything left and that he might as well settle old scores. He went to those woods. Oh, this is the son talking back. He went to those woods and he never came back. The FBI was called. They did a show for everyone involved, but I knew they weren't really looking. I had to get one drunk and slip him a few 50s before he told me that they got a few calls about the woods every year, about someone up and vanishing. But that was all he wanted to tell me. Before he got up and left with the rest of his team, he wrote "The Rake" onto a napkin. I didn't know what it meant until I searched for it on the internet. Honestly, I would have rather not known.
Oh no, do we have to search for that on the internet?
No.
Are we going to?
No.
Okay. We might.
You can.
And that was really scary. I thought the dad died, but apparently he survived the whole ordeal.
The dad was okay, so the dad told the story as a kid. He was telling about this is how his grandfather died. So through the dad's words, He was like, my dad. And then when we got back to him, the actual guy that presented the story, that's when he was like, my dad did go back in those woods.
Oh.
So everything we read about the action was the father talking about his father.
Oh.
And that's how his father died.
Oh. That's crazy. I like how in the beginning they just kept talking about how poor they were.
Yeah.
We just want to kill a deer so we could eat for 3
Whatever
days.
it is.
And then we get $50 for every kill.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a car, so we had to walk through. It's like, damn, dude.
And he mentioned every animal.
I would just lay down right in front of that demon thing. And be like, this life's no good.
Take us.
This life's no good. Well, that was really scary. That was really scary.
That was intense.
Very scary episode. If you enjoyed this episode, go join the Facebook group at True Scary Stories. Do all that kind of stuff I was talking about. What should our question or episode question be?
I don't know, man.
How about this?
What?
Do you think skinwalkers are just demons?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's like a separate species of like some Native American shit?
Spirit?
Yeah, like a specific, like El Chupacabra is like a specific, or Bigfoot is a specific dude.
Who knows?
Well, that's what the episode question is, Nick.
Okay, that's the episode
Do you
question.
think that the skinwalkers are demons? Is basically the question. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, uglies.